When no one's watching, the Sigma Empath becomes someone few ever truly know. Not the calm observer the world sees, but the quiet architect of emotional intelligence. Behind that composed exterior lies a mind that never stops analyzing, healing, and rebalancing. They're not scrolling for validation or performing for attention. They're rebuilding their inner world, piece by piece, in silence. Most people mistake their solitude for loneliness, but for the Sigma Empath, it's sacred. It's where they recharge from the chaos of other people's emotions. It's where they process the pain they absorbed without showing it. It's where they learn to turn emotional overload into clarity and sensitivity into strategy. When no one's watching, they don't disappear, they recalibrate. Because for the Sigma Empath, the unseen moments are the most powerful ones. They heal in silence, evolve in solitude, and prepare for battles others can't even sense are coming. They know the deepest transformations don't happen in public. They happen when the lights are off and the only voice they hear is their own truth whispering back. You'll never see them brag, but their strength is built in every quiet decision to stay kind, even when life tries to harden them. They are the kind of people who walk through storms with grace and emerge calmer, clearer, and stronger than before. Now I want to ask you, what do you do when no one is watching? Do you overthink, heal, reflect, or rebuild? Tell me your truth in the comments. And if this resonates with the way your mind works, subscribe to Brainy Empath, where we explore the quiet power of deep souls and the psychology behind emotional intelligence. Because the world sees your calm, but here we understand your storm. They decompress from the noise of the world. When the world finally falls silent, the Sigma Empath retreats into that sacred space between exhaustion and rebirth. After absorbing the chaos of everyone else's emotions, the tension in voices, the subtle disappointments, the invisible pain behind smiles, they need to exhale, not just physically, but spiritually. This isn't laziness, it's a necessary ritual of emotional survival. They've spent the day holding together the energies of people who never noticed how heavy they were to carry. So when the doors close and no one's around, they let go of the masks of calm understanding and sink into the stillness they crave more than anything. They sit in the dark, maybe with quiet music playing, no words, no explanations, no expectations. Their body might still, but their inner world begins to recalibrate. Every fragment of emotion that isn't theirs slowly dissolves. Every borrowed sadness released. It's not just about resting, it's about cleansing. Because Sigma Empaths don't just feel for others, they store it. And if they don't empty that storage, it becomes a prison. In those private decompression moments, they remember who they are without anyone else's energy clouding their intuition. They realign with their truth, recharge their boundaries, and breathe back their identity piece by piece. The world sees a calm, centered person, but that calm is earned in solitude, in the unseen hours of emotional maintenance. They're not hiding, they're healing. The stillness isn't avoidance, it's a reset. Because for the Sigma Empath, peace isn't a luxury, it's oxygen. And only in the quiet, when the noise fades and their thoughts finally belong to them again, do they become whole enough to face another day. They replay conversations to decode hidden meanings. When the world goes quiet, Sigma Empaths press rewind, not on memories, but on moments. Every conversation that felt off, every subtle shift in tone, every half second of hesitation, they replay it in their minds like detectives solving an emotional mystery. To most, a chat is just a chat, but to a Sigma Empath, it's data, the language beneath the words, the emotion behind the posture, the story hiding between breaths. They can't help it. Their intuition demands to understand what was really said, not just what was spoken. This is where their analytical empathy takes over. They see the tiny contradiction in someone's smile, the micro-expression that revealed hurt, the change in rhythm that exposed defensiveness. It's not paranoia, it's pattern recognition. The Sigma Empath has trained themselves to read between emotional lines because experience taught them that people rarely say what they truly mean. The quiet becomes their laboratory, and every replay is an experiment in human truth. But it's not just about others, it's also about themselves. As they revisit these interactions, they question their own responses. Did I overshare? Did I absorb too much? Did I ignore a red flag because I wanted to believe in their good intentions? This post-analysis isn't self-torture, It's self-mastery. It's how they sharpen their emotional radar, learning when to trust, when to pull back, and when to detach completely. To the outside world, it might seem like overthinking, but what's really happening is refinement. In the stillness of solitude, they decode humanity, not to control it, but to understand it deeply enough to protect their peace. Each replay becomes a lesson in discernment, each realization another brick in their emotional fortress. Because for the Sigma empath, clarity is power. They don't want to judge. They want to see, and when they finally understand the hidden meaning behind someone's words, they don't confront them. They simply adjust, quietly, gracefully, permanently. They transmute pain into perspective. For a Sigma empath, pain isn't the end of the story. It's the raw material for wisdom. When most people crumble under heartbreak, betrayal, or disappointment, the Sigma empath sits with it. They don't rush to numb the feeling or distract themselves. Instead, they dissect it quietly, patiently, until the pain reveals its lesson. They ask the questions no one else wants to face. Why did this hurt so deeply? What was I meant to learn? How can I grow from this instead of breaking because of it? They treat suffering like a teacher that speaks in riddles. While others drown in self-pity, they dive into understanding. This doesn't mean they're immune to the ache, far from it. They feel everything with devastating depth. But rather than letting pain own them, they absorb its message, process it, and evolve. Their emotional endurance comes from seeing beauty in breakdowns, recognizing that even the worst experiences carry codes of self-acknowledgement. Late at night, when the world sleeps, they're still awake, journaling, reflecting, maybe just staring into the dark as clarity slowly crystallizes. Every scar becomes a map of strength. Every disappointment reshapes their discernment. And over time, they stop fearing pain because they've mastered the art of turning it into perspective, something no manipulator, no trauma, no failure can ever take from them. That's the paradox of a Sigma empath. The more they're hurt, the more refined they become. Pain doesn't destroy them, it filters them. And while others see tragedy, the Sigma empath sees transformation. They rise quietly, not because they forget, but because they finally understand. They create emotional blueprints for future boundaries. When most people move on from pain, Sigma empaths study it, not to relieve it, but to map it. Every betrayal, every disappointment, every one-sided connection becomes a lesson, carefully cataloged in their emotional blueprint. They don't waste time blaming or hating, they analyze. What was the first red flag they ignored? Which behavior drained their energy the most? What did their intuition whisper before their heart silenced it? These are the blueprints they build in solitude, brick by brick, with emotional precision. To the outside world, it may seem like they've simply become colder, but what's really happening is design. They're crafting an internal architecture strong enough to prevent the same mistakes from repeating. The next time someone crosses a subtle line, they won't argue. They'll quietly step back. When someone tries to manipulate their empathy, they'll recognize the pattern instantly. The Sigma empath's boundaries aren't reactive walls. They're engineered systems. Every past wound refines the structure. They remember how it felt to overgive, to explain, to absorb, and they promise themselves never again without balance. Their compassion doesn't fade, it becomes filtered. They no longer let anyone rent space in their heart without emotional rent being paid in respect and reciprocity. That's what makes them so powerful. Their boundaries are not born of bitterness, but of wisdom. In private, they revisit those old emotional blueprints, not to reopen wounds, but to reinforce their foundation. They know their empathy is a gift, but one that requires management, not martyrdom. Each experience becomes an update to the design: stronger filters, sharper instincts, shorter access lists. By the time they're done, their energy is guarded by the lessons of every storm they've survived. And that's why no one can manipulate them the same way twice. The Sigma empath builds emotional boundaries not out of fear, but out of self-respect. Their blueprint isn't for protection alone, it's for evolution. They nurture themselves through solitude, not escape. When a Sigma empath disappears from the noise of the world, it's never about running away. It's about returning home. Solitude isn't their hiding place, it's their healing ground. While others use distraction to escape their emotions, the Sigma empath walks straight into them, unarmed but unafraid. In the quiet, they reconnect with the parts of themselves that get drowned out by other people's energies. The soft voice of intuition, the whisper of forgotten dreams, the peace that doesn't need permission. In that silence, they don't numb the pain, they process it. They let their emotions speak, cry if they need to, breathe if they must, and rebuild without witnesses. Solitude becomes their therapy, where they can strip away the masks they wear for the world and meet themselves without judgment. This isn't loneliness, it's alignment. It's the sacred pause between who they were and who they're becoming. They read, write, walk, think. They analyze the energies they've absorbed and gently release what isn't theirs. They remind themselves that it's not selfish to rest, to disconnect, or to choose silence over chaos. Every moment spent alone recharges their emotional battery and clears their mental field. That's the difference. While some people isolate out of avoidance, Sigma empaths isolate out of wisdom. They know they can't pour from an empty cup, so they refill it slowly, deliberately, until their empathy no longer feels like a burden, but a superpower again. By the time they reemerge, they aren't escaping life, they're re-entering it, evolved. Solitude didn't make them distant, it made them whole. They study human behavior without judgment. When a Sigma empath observes people, it's not with the intent to criticize, it's to understand. They watch how words contradict energy, how smiles hide exhaustion, and how motives reveal themselves in patterns rather than promises. They've learned that true understanding requires emotional neutrality. So instead of reacting, they study. Every tone, every pause, every avoidance tells them something deeper than words ever could. In a crowded room, their calm gaze isn't distance, it's decoding. They can sense the insecurity behind arrogance, the fear behind control, the longing behind anger. Yet they don't label people as good or bad. They see behaviors as reflections of pain, conditioning, or survival instincts. This detachment doesn't make them cold, it makes them wise. Because judgment creates bias, and bias clouds truth. The Sigma empath prefers clarity over superiority. They understand that not everyone is capable of emotional awareness, and that's okay. Their role isn't to fix, but to witness, to gather data quietly, to learn what drives people, and to adjust their boundaries accordingly. They're the ones who can sit in silence while others reveal everything without realizing it. This gift allows them to navigate life like emotional strategists, avoiding chaos before it even begins. But the beauty lies in how they balance perception with compassion. Even when they see manipulation, they don't rush to punish. They simply withdraw access. Their power lies in awareness, not confrontation. And that's why they're almost impossible to deceive twice. In their private thoughts, they don't hate those who wronged them, they analyze them. What made them act that way? What wound were they defending? This is how a Sigma empath transforms experience into wisdom. By refusing to judge, they stay free emotionally and mentally. Because judgment traps you in bitterness, but observation sets you free. And a Sigma empath, they always choose freedom over reaction. They reconnect with their inner voice and spiritual core. For the Sigma empath, the world's noise is relentless. Opinions, expectations, and emotional static. But in the quiet moments, when everything external fades, something sacred happens. They return to their inner voice. It's not a dramatic event. It's subtle, almost imperceptible, like tuning an old radio until a forgotten frequency becomes clear again. That voice isn't loud, but it's true. It reminds them who they were before the world told them who to be. This reconnection doesn't come through rituals or mantras alone. It comes through stillness. In solitude, they begin to sense what's theirs and what isn't. The borrowed beliefs, the absorbed emotions, the silent burdens they carried for others. All of it begins to fall away. What remains is something pure, the sound of their own essence. It's the intuitive core that has always guided them, the same inner compass they silenced to fit into a world that couldn't match their depth. When they reconnect with that spiritual center, they stop searching for external validation. They don't need approval to know they're on the right path. Their strength now comes from alignment, not applause. This shift transforms how they move through the world, quieter, steadier, clearer. They begin making decisions that feel right, even if they defy logic or others' expectations. Their intuition becomes their strategy, and their faith in their own perception becomes unshakable. This inner voice doesn't just guide them, it heals them. It teaches them that peace isn't found in perfection, but in presence, that they were never truly lost, only disconnected from themselves. Once they reunite with that still, wise presence within, they no longer chase meaning, they embody it. In the end, their spiritual core isn't something they discover, it's something they remember. They prepare their energy for the next emotional battle. When the world sees a Sigma empath in stillness, it often mistakes that quiet for peace. But what's really happening is recalibration. They're not retreating, they're reloading. Each period of silence is their way of gathering energy for the next wave of emotional intensity life will throw at them. They've learned that empathy without structure becomes exhaustion. So they treat their energy like a sacred currency, to be spent wisely, never wasted. To be spent silently, never druidly, where they would win, so that they know what their spent sport is hope and intent to be spent wisely, never wasted. In private, they assess what drained them and why. They trace emotional wounds back to their origin, not to reopen them, but to understand how to defend better next time. Every disappointment becomes data, every betrayal becomes armor. The Sigma empath doesn't prepare for emotional battles with aggression, they prepare with awareness. They rebuild their energy fields through solitude, nature, creativity, or silence, learning to protect their inner world as fiercely as warriors guard their kingdoms. They understand that not all battles require confrontation. Most are energetic, silent exchanges of intention, emotion, and vibration, so they strengthen their inner defenses, detachment, discernment, and boundaries that feel like velvet but hold like steel. When others underestimate them, they're already 10 steps ahead, not through manipulation, but through emotional foresight. This preparation isn't paranoia, it's wisdom. The Sigma empath knows storms are inevitable. They just refuse to be unprepared anymore. Their resilience is quiet, but it's absolute. They don't need to prove their strength to anyone. It's visible in how they no longer react to chaos, how they choose clarity over conflict, how they maintain calm when others try to pull them back into dysfunction. So when the next emotional battle comes, and it always does, they're ready, not with vengeance, but with vibrational mastery. They fight not to destroy, but to protect peace. Because for the Sigma empath, survival isn't just about endurance, it's about evolving into someone who can no longer be broken by the same things that once did. At the end of the day, the Sigma empath's greatest strength isn't just their ability to feel, it's their ability to rise after every emotional storm, more grounded and self-aware than before. They don't fight chaos with chaos, they master it through stillness, strategy, and spiritual balance. Every withdrawal, every quiet moment, every act of solitude isn't weakness, it's preparation for their next evolution. If you've ever felt misunderstood for being both deeply feeling and deeply analytical, know this: you're not broken, you're becoming. You're learning to protect what's sacred inside you, and that transformation is what makes you powerful beyond measure. If this resonated with you, don't leave quietly. Let's build a space where depth is celebrated, not judged. Subscribe to Brainy Empath and share your thoughts in the comments. Do you also recharge in silence before facing the world again?